On the behalf of JC Bose University of Science and Technology, I welcome Dr. Anurag for today's lecture. Dr. Anurag obtained MSc Physical Chemistry degree in the year 2008 and MPhil Energy in year 2009 from the University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and later moved to National Chemical Laboratory, Pune, and worked on CEM fuel cell membrane casting, material synthesis, and molecular modeling of CEM fuel cell. Dr. Anurag completed his PhD in 2014 in chemistry from Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Pune, and further pursued postdoctorate research under the supervision of Professor Bala Subramanian Sundaram at Chemistry and Physics Material Unit at Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Bangalore. He received prestigious DSC Inspire Faculty Award in Material Science and served as Assistant Professor in Central University of Haryana and Central University of Rajasthan. Apart from CSIR, UGC, JRF, and GATE Fellowship, Dr. Anurag received Rajat Jayanti Vigyan Sancharak Fellowship Award from the Department of Science and Technology in the year of 2011. At present, he is working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Chemistry at JC Bose University of Science and Technology, YMCA, FARIDABAD. His broad research area is theoretical and materials chemistry, and his research interest is to investigate proton conducting materials, electrolytes, and polymer membranes for energy applications, and polymeric ionic liquid as electrolyte, and CO2 sequestration using supercomputing and impedance measurement. He has published 13 research articles in international journals having impact factor more than 10, and 7 articles as main author and 4 articles as corresponding author. To his citation, he is having 155 citations with H index at 7. Now I request Dr. Anurag to start his presentation on electrolyte materials of molecular approach. Welcome, Dr. Anurag.
Thank you, Nikhil sir. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm happy to deliver a lecture on this energy management for sustainability value-added course. And as all the students or the participants of this particular course, they might get some idea now that I am working on PEM fuel cell for past 10 years now. So more than 10 years, and I'll be happy to talk about fuel cell today. And I don't want to go in the much research part it has been informed to me, but I would like to give some of the highlights which are relevant for understanding at least how the fuel cell works and so on. What are the important area where we can work and which is under investigation, and highlighting the area for at least research as well as the society purpose. So let me talk about these electrolyte materials which we use in the fuel cells. Before we go for that, let me talk about what is the idea of the fuel cell. Screen is not working. Okay, so as you can see from the title itself, that fuel cell, it is nothing but it generates power by spontaneous electrochemical reaction. This is very crucial part, that it is always give you energy, electrical energy from the chemicals as you are supplying your fuel. So basically, you supply your fuel, it will burn, and then it will give you a particular amount of energy, which you are converting from one form of energy to the another form, which is in the form of electricity. So as an output, we receive the energy in form of electricity. That is the advantage of this particular fuel cell. and being uh, fuel which we are using here as hydrogen, which we are burning in presence of oxygen, it is a very helpful in producing energy in a green way. So we are not utilizing here any carbon-based fuel, and we are not emitting any kind of pollutant in the environment, specifically carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. Of course, there is a much debate to talk about in terms of that hydrogen which we are getting here as a fuel, which is probably from methane or some other thing. But nowadays, the research is going on such that we can produce hydrogen from water itself. We can do the water splitting, and as nature does in um, plants, where it splits the water and it produce the hydrogen in the chlorophyll side. So similarly, can we do this water splitting in the lab itself, and we can produce hydrogen? And that is the next challenge with the society with us. So before I go with further detail of the fuel cell, let me talk about the brief history of it. So in 1839, first time it came into the existence, the concept, when Sir William Brew first demonstrated a hydrogen oxygen based fuel cell. He used a spongy platinum electrode using sulfuric acid as an electrolyte. So I'll talk about what is the use of electrolyte and so on. But this is very important that it is not like some 500 years back it has been known to the scientific world. It is just in 1839 it has been discovered, and now we have technology of fuel cell available not only in terms of producing power for the bulk electricity, but also in form of cars, in form of trucks and so on, and the vehicles, and nowadays in the laptops also. So apart from the basic idea which has been developed in 1839, the most key aspect which is related to fuel cell and which attract all the scientific community, that is the advantage of fuel cells over thermal engines as a prominent source of electrical energy, which was first posted by the William Ostwald, who was one of the very big physical chemists. So he basically quoted that fuel cell is nothing but no smoke, no soot, no fire. So this is a very big advantage which has been taken by the scientific world. So keeping these two basic aspects, that it provides electricity, which is nothing but coming from chemical energy, and it is not emitting any kind of carbon-based pollutants like carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and so on. So it is environment or eco-friendly as well. It is broadly classified in two categories based on the temperature or the operation of the fuel cell at which it is taking place, the temperature at which. First is the low temperature fuel cell, and second is the high temperature fuel cell. As you can see in the table here, I have highlighted here three fuel cells which are basically operating maximum up to 200 degrees centigrade. And there is another class of fuel cell which is I have highlighted in the red color, which is basically they are operated at much higher temperature, above 500 degrees centigrade, up to 1000 degrees centigrade. And the amount of electricity or the energy which is produced from high temperature fuel cell is much higher, and as the advantage of these high temperature fuel cell, we can use them in the rockets and propellants, etc. The next thing, which is the further classification of these fuel cells are based on the electrolyte media which we are using to facilitate this particular chemical energy conversion into electrical energy. In order to have this particular chemical energy conversion, we use certain electrolyte media, and based on that, low temperature fuel cells are basically classified in three fuel cell. One of them is which is most advanced now, that is a proton exchange membrane or polymer electrolyte membrane. I will talk about it in much more detail because that is also in my area of research. But apart from that, this proton exchange membrane fuel cell, we can use phosphoric acid as a electrolyte media. As you can see here that in the we can use immobilized liquid S3PO4 itself. In the liquid S3PO4, if we are using, it is known as phosphoric acid fuel cell. If we are using certain bases, alkaline bases such as sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, then it is known as alkaline fuel cell, AFC. These are also nowadays people are preferring. You might have seen some name of like alkaline batteries and so on. So they are very much similar to whatever we are talking about, alkaline fuel cell. Another class here, which is high temperature, that is basically based on carbonates or the ceramics, which we use at a much higher temperature, because these electrolytes which we are talking about here, S3PO4 or sodium hydroxide and so on, they will not sustain up to that temperature. So we need to use certain electrolytes such that they can be used at much higher temperature, such as 500 or 1000 degrees centigrade. So in case of molten carbonate fuel cell, we use liquid carbonate as a electrolyte media. Whereas in the solid oxide fuel cell, we use ceramics such as oxides of yttrium and zirconium, which are we are using, which we use. And based on that, you will have a specific kind of transport phenomena which occurs in these fuel cells. So this is the basic information which is related to any kind of fuel cell. Now, I would like to highlight here one of the fuel cell, which is the polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cell. As you can see here, it has a wide range of operating temperature, such as 60 degree to 180 degree centigrade. So it covers mostly applications which are at room temperature also, or we need at much higher temperature, slightly like 200 degrees centigrade. The bigger advantage of having fuel cell as an electrical energy source is that we simply supply the fuel and we collect the electricity. So if we want electricity for a remote area, we don't need to make arrangement of wires, electrical wires and so on, and gases, etc. We need only hydrogen gas with us. Oxygen we can take from environment itself, and we can simply run our fuel cell and it can produce energy as much as you want. So another advantage is that you can club two cells together. You can make a stack of n number of cells you can club together, and you can generate more and more power as per your desire. So if I simply say in a generalized way, if you have a room of 10 by 10, and if you have a fuel cell stack of in that room, 10 feet by 10 feet room, that is enough to provide energy to a small town. I repeat, it is enough to provide electricity for a small town. Similarly, like if you want electricity on a hill station, and if you want to supply or you want to create local electrical supply, suppose in the Siachen or somewhere else. You don't need any other thing. You just need a fuel cell, and you need hydrogen cylinder or the gas or the fuel which you are using here. That's it. So these are the advantages of fuel cell, and the amount of power which is generated here is enormous, and that is the key part which is attracting scientific community. So with this brief introduction of fuel cell, let me talk about some important aspect of fuel cell, as in specifically of electrolytes, which are mainly very much similar in all these fuel cells which we have highlighted here. Of course, if you are changing your electrolyte, the electrolyte which we are using, it will change. But the kind of facilitation of transport, either it will be hydroxide ion, or it will be in terms of a proton, or it will be in terms of a carbonate or oxide. The mechanism will be almost very much similar. So let me talk about one of the example of PEM-FC. Just a minute. Just a minute. Somebody is there knocking my door. Okay, I am sorry. Sorry for interruption in between. Okay, this is a typical fuel cell, PEM fuel cell, which you can see on your screen now. As you can see here, that it has some kind of a stack design here, if you see. But this is not a stack. Okay, this is a particularly only one fuel cell assembly. Okay, this is one fuel cell assembly which you are seeing on your screen now. It has these, whatever the outside plates which you are seeing as a pink color, these are nothing but the polar plates which we are using, and we are supplying hydrogen from the one side, and we are supplying oxygen from the other side. That is simply we are taking from the air. So hydrogen get oxidized and it produces two electrons, which we are getting in terms of the outputs or the source where we are collecting our electricity. So this is the electron which is coming in the circuit, which is coming by oxidation, that hydrogen which is getting oxidized here in the two protons and two electrons. And then these two proton, it has to be supplied to the other side, these oxygen molecules, so that it can complete the chemical reaction which is involved here and produce the water as a final product. So basically, the proton which is here produced on the anode, it has to pass through the electrolyte media and it has to reach to the other side, that is the cathode. So this is a simple assembly of the fuel cell which is very common, and since we are talking about polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cell, so this is a particular membrane which is exactly in the middle. If you see here, it is a sandwich part. Let me show in a little bit a different way. So this is a typical fuel cell assembly. This is only a single cell. Okay, so you need a graphite plate here where you have specific gas chambers, so that whatever gas we are supplying from the outside, it distribute on the fuel cell electrode in the uniform manner. And in the between, if you see here, this is nothing but called MEA. This is membrane electrode assembly. Okay, so here what is happening, on the one side you will have platinum electrode which will act as a anode. Another side there will be cathode, again it will be made up of the platinum only, and in between you will have very thin membrane, and that membrane will be of 100 micron or maybe 150 micron thickness, and you can see that that much thickness is providing a barrier in between them, that hydrogen is not getting mixed with the oxygen, and that's why you are getting these two electron as a output here. Let me show another diagram here to you. This is your membrane electrode assembly. This will be your platinum electrode, which will act as a anode, where you are supplying hydrogen. Another side you are supplying air, oxygen, and that again it will be a platinum electrode. And in between you will have this 100 micron thickness or 150 micron thickness or 50 micron thickness membrane, which will act as a electrolyte. So what this particular polymer membrane which will act as an electrolyte, it facilitates these proton which will move from anode to cathode side. This is a important thing here. And the whole chemistry which is involved here in just a simple reaction, that hydrogen is getting oxidized, producing these electrons which are coming through the load in terms of the electricity, and then we are getting the output in terms of water. So this is our water, which is basically we are getting as a side product or the final product of the reaction. And whatever electricity we are getting here, that is simply coming from the fuel which we are supplying. It has a certain advantage over other fuel cell, such as we are using a solid membrane here, which is basically made up of a polymer, and it has comparably high power density. So what do I mean by power density? If let's say I am using a, if you see this particular picture here, I am having a particular membrane dimension. I am using a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter membrane. So how much surface area I am having of the membrane which can connect to my anode and cathode. So if I am producing electricity in per unit area, so that will be my power density. So based on that, I will get my power density values. So you will have high power density from these particular PEM fuel cell. And since you are using a solid polymer, you will not have a problem with your electrolyte, which is leaching from the metal container and so on, and which finally corrode your whatever the cell assembly you are having. Because at some inside some material, or using some iron container or zinc container or some other container, you will use it so that you can keep your assembly. So there will be always some kind of leaching with respect to time, when we use for a 6 month, 1 year and so on. So if we are using these particular polymer membrane as a electrolyte, that particular phosphoric acid or some other molten carbonate, they will not leach out easily. And see, there won't be any corrosion problem due to those electrolytes. So since we are using a solid polymer here, it will reduce the corrosion problem, it will give high power density, and we don't need to worry much about the electrolyte management, because once we prepare the stack, we don't need to worry much about further whether it is getting concentrated or not. You might have seen that in battery generally we pour water after some time, and after certain number of cycles, it does not give that much electricity or energy or the output generally which you get from the fresh one, because the number of cycles you have, your energy hysteresis will keep on generating. So you will lose your efficiency with respect to time. But if you are using polymer electrolyte membrane, that particular problem won't be there. Of course, it is there, but comparatively, it will have very less impact. So the main problem related to this particular PEM fuel cell is basically there are two. One is regarding you are using the electrode here, that is platinum. Since you are using platinum electrode here, which is very costly, and that is leading to the cost of this particular fuel cell assembly. And that's why the commercialization of fuel cell stack is not as uh, easy as you are thinking for something else. Another problem which is here, that whatever efficiency of a particular cell we are talking about, it is totally governed by these particular electrolytes. So as you can say that the maximum efficiency of any fuel cell you are getting in PEM fuel cell, polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cell, and in that also you have the limitation of the efficiency because of the membrane or the polymer which you are using. So basically, you need this particular membrane so that you can have a barrier in terms of electron. So that electron, whatever is produced on the anode side, it should go in the output as a load only. It should not go through the membrane. So that is the first condition. The second condition, that it should facilitate proton transfer in a much efficient way. The third thing which is very important here, that is, if we are using a stack, the mechanical forces which are applied there, they are very high. So your membrane assembly, it should not break. As you might have seen that we are using only 50 micron thickness, so it should not break. And at the same time, there should not be any fuel gas crossover. So hydrogen should not pass from the membrane to the other side. This is a typical cell potential versus current density plot for a fuel cell. As you can see, this is a chemical reaction which I am talking. This will be at anode side, hydrogen will get oxidized, and at cathode side, oxygen will get reduced with the 2 protons and the 2 electrons, and the maximum output you will get from a particular fuel cell reaction, hydrogen oxygen fuel cell reaction, that will be 1.23 volt. As you can see here, the maximum output you are getting here, that 1.23 volt, this is the experimental one. So it will generally go from 1.23 to 0.45 and so on. So this is the curve which is further identified. So based on what problems we are facing in terms of final performance, we should get always 1.23 volt, but we are not getting. With time or with the process, the efficiency or the current output which we are getting here in terms of cell potential, it does not meet 1.23. So generally what happens, there are 3 criteria here when which it has been classified. At lower current density, you have huge activation or potential. What does it mean? That the platinum which you are using as a electrode surface, where hydrogen is getting oxidized or oxygen is getting reduced, in terms of hydrogen it is still fine, but oxygen reaction at the electrode, it is slightly sluggish. It is not as quick that okay, oxygen comes and it immediately get reduced. It requires some energy. There is the energy loss over there. So that is called the over potential. And we are using the term here activation over potential just to say that simply the oxygen which is coming from the environment, it is not getting reduced just like that. It requires that some energy to get activated. Same time, you will have a over potential due to the resistance of the membrane itself. Because if membrane will not let the proton move from one side to another side, you will have some barrier or some ohmic loss of your energy. The last one, that is the mass transport over potential, that how fast or slow your hydrogen or oxygen gas they are supplied towards the electrode surface. So based on the movement of the fuel which we are using, you will have the over potential or energy loss because of that. These are some kind of polymer membranes which are well defined, and they are well commercialized, as you can see from these names. This is a particular polymer backbone of the membranes are generally based on Teflon units which you might have used at your home. Every day you use Teflon based materials, you have Teflon based cookwares and etc. So the same polymer backbone is used in the fuel cell, and you have some specific side chain here that is terminated with the SO3H group. So based on this side chain pendant, we have some specific commercial membranes available, such as Dow from Dow Chemicals, Aciplex from Asahi Glass Chemicals, and Nafion from DuPont. So this was the first membrane which was came into the existence around 1960. And till date, we don't have any alternate of this particular Nafion in terms of performance. Apart from these membranes, the important part here is that you need water to facilitate the proton transfer to take a proton from this SO3H group. This is another class of the membrane which is under development to further enhance the limitations of the Nafion based PEM fuel cell, because you are using water as a media, so which is also a side product of the reaction. You cannot go beyond 100 degrees centigrade, even 80 degrees centigrade, because water starts getting vaporized. So in order to have that, you mix your membrane with phosphoric acid. So these are the benzimidazole based membranes where the proton site is from this imidazole, and you use phosphoric acid. You can use ionic liquids also. This is a new development in the recent time, in past 1 decade, that we can use specific ionic liquids as a electrolyte media to facilitate the proton transfer. So these are another different ionic liquids which can be used. So let me talk briefly how proton transfer takes place. So if a proton comes from one side, it try to search for another molecule, and then it transfer the proton to the another side, and then again it will search for the another new molecule which can act as a carrier for the proton. This is something which is known as the structural diffusion. This is a specific terminology which is used in the proton transport. So how basically it is happening? You have a water molecule, you have another water molecule, you have a hydrogen bonding in between because you have a proton, and then this particular hydrogen, it will directly connect to it, and then it will release this hydrogen from another side. So another water molecule will take it. So this is a very important phenomena which happen in terms of facilitation of this proton transport, where you have one structure which is converting into another structure, and basically this particular proton which comes from the anode side, it goes to one water molecule, then another water molecule, and so on. And this way, it will jump from one water molecule to another water molecule, then the third water molecule, then fourth water molecule. And by keep on jumping or hopping from one side to another side, it reaches to the oxygen. These are some studies by Professor Tuckerman, who has demonstrated these events from the calculations. This was a very famous paper in the Nature Chemistry in 2012, where he has shown how proton jump or hop from one side to another side of phosphoric acid itself. As you can see here that you have four different five different phosphoric acid molecules here, and then it is moving from one side of phosphoric acid to another side. Okay, so these are the jumps which is happening, and these are the successive events. It takes place in the media in a very uh, short time, in roughly I would say in the picosecond time scale. This is another mechanism which facilitates in the fuel cell, that is the vacuolar mechanism. So basically you have a molecule, and that molecule hold that particular proton, and it takes to the that particular molecule to the another side just by keeping or holding that proton itself. And this particular mechanism is known as the vacuolar mechanism, and water is the best facilitator for this particular. We can also use ammonia as a carrier, and again it will convert as a ammonium ion. This is just before I stop my talk here. Let me show you basically how this particular vacuolar diffusion takes place. So in a particular membrane matrix, you have a water molecule inside that, which is holding there with the voids of the membrane. And now if you have a proton which is coming from anode side, then it will convert into a hydronium ion, and that hydronium ion basically go closer to the sulfonic group of the membrane, and then it will release that proton. SO3 minus, it will convert into SO3H, and because of the dissociation constant of acid dissociation constant of this particular sulfuric group, SO3H group, it will immediately release that proton to the another neighboring water molecule, and then it will go to the next sulfonate group, SO3 minus group, based on the electrostatic gradient which is there. So there is a potential gradient of proton itself, there is a proton gradient, and the same time there is electrostatic gradient produced locally inside the membrane matrix, and by which it will move to the one side to the another side. So these are the basically two important phenomena which takes place in the fuel cell. This is just another class of material which just a minute I will show you how a particular electrolyte can facilitate proton transfer. So let's say this is a particular ionic liquid here which I am showing from one of my work. So you have a cation and you have an anion. You can see that they are nicely arranged in a particular fashion. So basically from computational studies, we can easily identify how exactly this proton is hopping or proton is moving from one side to another side or not. So just I will show you this movie. I think it is not working. Just a minute. Can you see it now? Can you see the movie? See how a particular ion it is keep on moving or rotating in the real time. Okay, this is the way it goes from one side to another side. It is trying to go from one side to another side, and it is keep on rotating. It is tumbling. So basically, if it catch a proton from one side, it keep on rotating at its own place, and it will give or it will transfer the proton to the another side. So this is the way it happens. Okay, let me, if you have a vacant site, the pink color which I am highlighting here, it is nothing but a vacant site. So a particular ion, it hops from one side to another side, and that you can easily visualize from the computational studies. Okay, this is the way it goes from one side to another side, which is vacant. These are the different snapshot A, B, and C, which has been taken at different time interval, and they are the particular ions. They are moving from one to another side, and then they are going from that filled side to the vacant side. And this way, your vacant side, that pink color, it is keep on moving inside the matrix, and that is the way it go from one side to another side inside the membrane. And there is always a energy barrier associated with this. So this is an example from one of my work that how much energy barrier is there. As you can see that cation here, which I am showing an energy barrier of around 2.8 kcal per mole, whereas the anion is having much more barrier to facilitate the transfer from one side to another side. So you can see that barrier is almost 6 kcal per mole. So anion here in this particular case taking more energy to move from one side to another side. So these are the nothing but some of the glimpse of my work which I am correlating how a proton moves inside a fuel cell and which finally lead to proton transfer and so on. So I don't want to go in these details. So this is a much more clear view inside a membrane matrix for you people. So you can see here this blue color is nothing but water molecules, and this yellow and red is SO3 group, which I have shown in the membrane, and this green color is nothing but your CF2 units. Okay, so whatever in the beginning I talked about the Teflon part. So basically these are the hydrophobic surfaces inside the membrane, and there is this hydrophilic domains inside that which generally facilitate the proton transfer. So this is the way the whole research is going on in this particular area. How we can resist? How can we reduce the resistance of these polymer membranes in the proton transfer, and we can facilitate this activity in a much better way. And the another major area is, can we replace platinum? So that is the another area where the scientists are working day and night, so that we can have much cheaper technology available with us. With this, I would like to stop here, and if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to.
Now the session is open for the questions. Anybody having any question can unmute himself and ask the question.
Dr. Anurag, this is mesmerizing. I mean, after a long time, I'm getting back to chemistry. Thank you for your lecture. One question which I had was, still, can you just take me through again the role of platinum? The transport phenomena I could understand, but role of platinum, I just wanted to understand a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. The thing is that the platinum, it provides a surface where your hydrogen can get oxidized or oxygen can get reduced. Until unless you have that surface available, you will not have that facilitation. Okay, so hydrogen has to convert into H plus, and that will happen only and only on the surface of platinum. Of course, we have now a replacement of platinum with some other metals, but they are not as successful as we have the platinum. So if you let me share my screen once again. Is it visible now?
Yeah, very much.
Yes.
Just a second, something is wrong. Yeah, so here, as you can see here, this particular reaction which I am talking here, this hydrogen is converting into 2H plus. So this will not take place until unless you use platinum. The same time, until unless you use platinum, this oxygen, it will not take these two protons and it will not convert into the water. So that is the problem which we are having. We are
Okay.
now using certain electrocatalysts so that we can replace platinum and so on. But still, we are not as successful as platinum is acting as a catalyst.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good evening, sir. This is Pranjit Sarkar here.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I have a doubt regarding this, the fuel cell which we are talking about uses three different states of matter together. We have the solid catalyst, we have the liquid electrolyte, and we have the gases coming in. So, sir, how are we going to balance all these three? Because they can be very, gases are very unpredictable, and the electrolyte is very corrosive.
No,
So, how are we going to
actually,
balance?
as we know that electrolytes are corrosive, so that's why the research is more towards this particular polymer electrolyte membranes. We are not using directly liquid electrolyte. It is a quasi-solid electrolyte system. That is the one thing. And as you already mentioned that how we manage. So this itself is a major challenge, that this particular electrolyte which we are using here, if we have any problem in terms of electrolyte management, the performance will go down. So that is the one area of research which is going on, that how we can always have uniform distribution of electrolyte such that we have a very high efficiency. Of course, we have the high efficiency in the beginning, but after a period of 2 years and so many cycles, definitely that electrolyte manage is not uniformly distributed or covered. Of course, in order to have a uniform distribution of gas, as you can see here in this particular picture, that we have a particular graphite plate where we are having these gas connections such that it distribute all the oxygen or hydrogen gas which we are supplying from the outside in a uniform manner on this particular electrolyte surface. And in order to have a uniform distribution, we use certain gas diffusion layers so that there won't be direct pressure of the gas at particular point of the membrane. It releases the hydrogen gas on the membrane surface or the membrane electrode assembly surface in a uniform manner. So we use these gas diffusion layers. So it cover all the problems which are happening regarding the distribution of the gas on the membrane electrode assembly. So in terms of technology advancement, we are at the level that we don't have problem with supplying the oxygen or hydrogen on the membrane electrode assembly in a proper manner. We already reached to that level that we already get a very precise way of our whatever fuel we are using here to distribute on the membrane electrodes assembly. The only problem which we are facing, that is regarding the replacement of platinum because of the cost. And the second thing which we are facing in terms of electrolytes, of course, there is no alternate of people are keep on working on the different electrolyte media and management. And with respect to time, another issue comes with respect to there are the free radicals which are created here, and they start degrade the membrane and so on. So with respect to time, polymer degradation starts and so on. But compared to the liquid electrolyte corrosion issues, the issues are here comparatively much lesser, and you have much more control in terms of your efficiency. So if I talk about comparison in terms of solar panels, in solar panels nowadays you reach up to the efficiency of 22%, whereas in fuel cell case the efficiency goes up to 85%. It's a huge difference.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? I'll be happy to take if there is any.
Any more questions from audience side? So I think there is no more question, and I thank you, Dr. Anurag, for being with us and for such a nice talk. And I thank you all participants for being here on this occasion. Thank you to all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anurag.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir. Thank you very much.
Thank
And if you have any more question, you can drop me a mail to my email ID. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to answer.